unless you have any questions, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:36. And I guess roll call. We really need that. I don't think so. Cool and Misha are here, and so is Steve.
All right. Director Waslowski.
Here.
Director Racy.
Here.
Director Bajaj.
Here.
Items not on the agenda? Hopefully none. Okay. Consent calendar. Approving the November 2020 interim financial report, the January 14th meeting minutes, and the January check register. I'll move to approve it since there's only 3 of us. Somebody has to second that.
I'll second.
And any questions? No questions? Okay.
All right. Is
Go ahead.
that a call to question?
Yep.
All right. Director Bajaj.
Yay.
Director Racy.
Yay.
Director Waslowski.
All right. Item 4, General Manager's report.
All right. Here we go. So most of this month, the pool's operating pretty much as normal. We didn't have any unintended closures, and most of what we were doing this month was just getting ready for the outreach project, putting together a team, putting together the report for you guys, and getting kind of a head start on the work. In addition to that, of course, we're working on the HRIS alternative implementation system. Sorry, HRIS system implementation. We're kind of building it out as we speak. And so that was taking up a little bit of time, and of course, planning out the 2021 season. We did put that a little bit on hold only because we're not really sure what's going to happen with COVID going forward. So that's kind of on hold. I would have normally liked to have shared, okay, this is what the summer schedule is going to look like. We kind of have a plan, but you know, a lot of things can change between now and then. That's about it.
Okay. I realized you didn't scroll down to the report, so I was trying to remember what it said. All right. The next item, any questions? Because what I've seen as a user of the pool most days that it's open is that we still have almost all our slots filled, as far as I can see. You know, there's a big demand, and so I'm glad to see that. Anyway, the next item we have on the agenda is initial review of the draft annual independent audit for last fiscal year. And next meeting, we'll go over this and answer more questions in detail. But basically, it's put out to give you a lot of time to take a look at. And we don't really need to discuss it, I think, much, Kevin, do we? Other than the fact that most of that year we were still open, so we actually made money, and this year we'll actually lose. This fiscal year we're in now, we'll actually lose some money, but we have enough reserves to get us through several more years of COVID. So that's pretty much a summary of that. If you have questions, at our theoretically we'll have the auditor, and we can ask him questions if you have any detailed ones. But if you have any detailed questions on it, I would ask Kevin because he's really familiar with it. And also, it's you can either email him or the auditor to with any questions for them, so they know what your questions are. But I found it pretty straightforward. I looked at it in detail. So anyway, I've beaten that to death a lot. So we will go on to the next one unless there are any questions. No? Okay. So item 5, item 6, officer rotation policy, second reading. Do we have to take a vote on that, Kevin? I don't think so. We do?
Yeah. So if the amendment is to pass, then it'll have to pass by majority.
Okay. Did I understand right? Do we have to vote?
If you want it to pass, yes.
Okay. Any questions about it then? We made some changes at the last reading, and they seem pretty straightforward to me. You guys don't have any problems? Okay. All right. Then I call the question.
We need a
Motion?
motion. Yeah, motion and a second.
Move to approve the amendment to Board Policy 4020, officer.
Second.
All right. Are we calling the question then? Okay. Director Bajaj,
Yay.
Director Racy,
Yay.
Director Wazowski,
Revote.
and was that a
That was a yes. Sorry. I'm fading out again. All right. Let's move on to item 7.
I didn't catch that, but I'm assuming you said to go ahead and do the report.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, great. I'm going to scroll down so we can just take a look at it here. So last meeting, Director Chow had asked for a outreach plan, and this is of course very important that the residents of Rancho Rinconada kind of know that this is potentially happening, and so staff took that pretty seriously, and this outreach proposal kind of shows that. The target audience, of course, is going to be all the residents in Rancho Rinconada, as well as current users of the pool and people who are kind of close by, within about half a mile, but skewed towards Cupertino. In terms of the outreach strategy, generally speaking, it's all going to be separate efforts that are going to direct people to the website. And the website's really where most of the information will be kept, and there will be certain calls to action increasingly as time goes on. At first, it'll be mostly just information. So there's direct mail. This is one of the essential ways of getting the message out, only because you know it's going to arrive at all the addresses within Rancho and certain other addresses close by. Social media, we're going to use Nextdoor, which would be another place where we can really make sure that people within a certain neighborhood get that message. We also have on-site outreach. This one's a little confusing, but this involves posters, but also a banner along Bollinger. So that way people can really see when they're kind of driving by, oh, hey, there's something happening. How much we get out of that will really depend on what that message is, how effective that is in getting people to go to the website. And then, of course, the last one is email outreach. This would be to current customers that we have email addresses for. This can be challenging because there's a lot of people who use our public swim, and not all of them, we don't really have their email addresses. If you come for public swim, if you show up with your family for public swim, you're not going to give us your address. You're not going to give us your email. So this is really more for people who do swim lessons, people who do swim camp, things like that. Any questions so far? All right. So the phases of the campaign, there'll be 3 phases. The first phase would be to just build awareness of the issue. This one, the message will be relatively simple. So this topic is very complex, right? Even just understanding what LAFCO is not a simple thing. You know, the involvement of the city council, the commission, even the Rancho board is just way more complex than the general public probably wants to know about at this point. And so the message would just be very, very simple, that there's going to be a merge potentially. And to find out more information, you want to go to the website. We'll be able to judge success by seeing a lot of visitors to the page and of course, hopefully we can get people to sign up for our e-newsletter. The second phase is where this is after the board comes to a formal position on this topic. So the old Rancho board had a position, against merging. The new Rancho board is going to need to kind of decide what that position is and how strong it is as well. And there will be some opportunity for both the public to have input, and of course the board will be able to discuss this and kind of really hone in on what that needs to be. Once that position is set, that's where phase 2 comes in. That's where we're going to be sending out messages saying, hey, not only is this potentially happening, but this is what the Rancho board thinks about it, either yes or no or whatever. And then third phase would be at some future point, which would say, okay, phase 3 is, this is happening. This is what the board thinks about it. And this is what you as a reader should do about this. That's the call to action. I did see a raised hand. Did you have a question?
Oh, me from the public? I can comment on this whenever you guys are ready to take public comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's after the presentation.
Yeah, no, that's why I put it up so that you guys would. I wasn't sure when you're doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, so whenever you're done, whatever the protocol is, I figured out, because now we have like yellow hands. Oh, is that me? Oh, okay, that's weird. All right, I'm sorry. I'm getting used. I thought I knew Zoom. This is my 3rd Zoom meeting today, believe it. And it's like, it's an experience. So yeah, Kevin, whenever you want public comment, then just let me know.
Okay, sure. All right. And if anyone has any questions, just jump in. I can review it. In terms of the timeline, the timeline's pretty tight. So, the city staff is going to have this proposal ready for city council approval in July. And so, if we want to have any hope of the public having enough awareness that this is happening and being able to dig in enough to know how they feel about it, and be ready to tell city council how they feel about it, then we have to start as early as possible. That's just a given. These things take time to get out. People need to discuss and think about how they feel about it and really look at the pros and cons. So we're here. This is the February meeting. This is what we're doing right now. We've created the plan, and we're hoping to get an approval to go ahead and go on to the next steps. After which, immediately starting literally tomorrow, we will begin actually putting together those banners. We'll start ordering the banners. We'll start getting proofs of the mailers. We'll start ordering the mailers. The website's going to be set up, surveys, mailing lists, even a YouTube video. So, just a lot of things are going to happen over the next 2 weeks. When we get the go ahead. All of it will launch and potentially be viewable by residents in the first week of March. So that means banners are up in the first week of March. That mailer is going to arrive in the mailbox first week of March. Posters are going to go up so our current users will see them. And that website will go live, so on and so forth. We'll have our next board meeting on the 2nd. And again, I don't expect the board position to be set at that meeting, not yet. There will be a public meeting, a public outreach meeting in the 3rd or 4th week of March during this awareness. Then enter into the 2nd phase. I expect sometime in April, but it could be later, right? So if the board doesn't make a position, everyone able to see me? I'm getting a message that my internet's not stable. Still good?
Your voice is kind of going in and out, Kevin.
Okay. Is it any better now?
Hey, something else.
Anything better now?
Yes, it's better. It's better.
All right, perfect. So we're hoping to get the board's position sometime in April. So there's a bit of a, things can kind of shift around a little bit, but I think that at least the first phase is pretty set right here. And I think phase 2, based on current information, might actually get pushed out a little bit farther than anticipated and might be starting more in May. But we'll see. It really depends on when we can get that board. And then the final phase, again, is when it starts is really going to depend on how much feedback we're getting, how strong the board's position is, things like that. Now, costs are fairly high. I mean, yes.
Quick question. When I kind of feel that at our last board meeting, we got general agreement that I believe the board as a whole supports this idea and wanted to see a proposal. And 2, your timeline, item 3 was the board takes confirms that, yeah, we think it's desirable to keep our special district going if we can, if that's the will of the people. I think this modification in item 4 for board action in April, what I thought that meant was that after we get some more feedback, we'll see what the initial reaction is to awareness, and perhaps that'll steer the board into a more refined position. But that overall, I think that tonight, when we staff the work plan and approve the funding, if that's what we choose to do, and I hope we do, the board's already saying, yeah, we think it's worthwhile to reach out to our constituents and find out, let them know it's possible that the district could be taken over by the city of Cupertino, and is this what you want? Let us know, because we serve we're a public entity, and so I think I was a little worried about what you said about, well, the board doesn't really need to decide until April. Well, actually by March, they've decided, yeah, we'll keep it. Now, I might be wrong. I'll let you respond to it. It's kind of a weird question. Poorly stated.
Sorry, I was a little bit confused that question. It was about the board position and when it happens.
Yeah, because you said the board still doesn't have to take a position until April. Well, they already have started taking a position at the last meeting. Unfortunately, not all 5 of us are here tonight, but the 2 people, at least one of the 2 people said, yeah, I think that by running for the board itself, you've indicated that you see value in the district remaining a district. My position is very clear, along with the previous board, is that only by maintaining our independence, I think we have the best chance to offer recreation year-round at the level we were before the pandemic, when the pandemic gets solved. And I think that's a good thing, so that's not, I didn't state that as a question. Do you understand what I'm getting at? I thought you were putting the board's decisions further away than they really need to be. Am I wrong?
The board can certainly take a position whenever, at the March meeting if needed. Definitely, this March date would be a good day for it. However, if more time is needed, if public input is needed, it can always be pushed into the April meeting as well. The most important, of course, just being that phase 1 message gets out as early as possible to kind of build that awareness that this issue is happening.
It goes back to February, which is tonight.
But yeah, a board position earlier would be better because we can enter phase 2 better. But at the same time, of course, we wouldn't want to rush anyone's decision making. We want everything to be informed.
Yes. Okay.
So going down to the costs, outreach is never inexpensive. It's a very expensive thing to do. The direct mail is anticipated to cost somewhere between $5,500 to $13,000. We've identified about 5,900 households in our target area, This includes the Rancho residents as well as some Cupertino and San Jose residents within about a half-mile radius, but kind of pushed towards Cupertino. So it's more of an oval. And we did go outside the resident area because the residents we selected because clearly they have an economic stake in this, but the close by residents are most likely to use the pool. And so they have a programmatic stake in what happens, even if they're not in the resident area itself. We took a look at the map of who actually uses the pool, and it's very much kind of in that sort of oval shape that's kind of pushed a little bit toward. Trying to get the ones that are closest. The other thing to consider too is that a lot of our users who do public swim actually walk to the pool. So they're pretty close, maybe even across the street in San Jose, across Bollinger. It makes sense to send them mailers as well. These are, this amount is for either somewhere between 3 rounds of the smallest 4x6 mailer, that's the $5,600 estimate, all the way up to 5 rounds of the biggest mailer, which is a little bit larger, 6 by 11. The important thing to understand is that this is, as expensive as it is in total, is actually very cheap when you think about how much each mailer costs. So each mailer going out is less than the cost of the stamp. The smallest one, in fact, is somewhere around like 30 something cents, right? And so you really can't get cheaper than that. It would be much more expensive to walk around to each house talking to people. So this is a very, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very inexpensive way of doing it. Staff time is not insignificant. It's somewhere between 210 to 380 staff hours over the 26-week campaign, including, of course, the planning phase, which is already passed. That ends up being somewhere between 8 to 14 hours of work per week. And, again, this would be for things like, typesetting, which time, graphic design, getting that message right. The message especially has to be important, especially when we're spending that much money on it. Everything needs to be leading people to the website and then from the website to whatever it is that, whatever action we're trying to elicit. And of course, the on-site printing is the least expensive. These are outdoor banners, things like that. So in terms of options for the board, I've listed, again, these are just potentials. The board can go with anything or even things that aren't listed here, but I just put this down just to get things started. There's the maximum, of course, which would be 380 staff hours and $27,347. This would not be a guarantee of spending that. There's no desire to spend any more than is necessary. So this would just say, look, it's up to 5 mailers. If we get it done in 3, then that's what we get it done at. There's zero desire to go over or do more than needs to be done. So it would just be saying, staff, you have free reign, go for it, get this done. That's it. However, that is a lot of money. So there's always the midpoint, 295 staff hours and $20,000, or potentially even just go with the minimum and then, staff might have to come back. The disadvantage, of course, with the minimum is that there's a very strong likelihood that we will need to come back again. And what that does is that means I have to write another report and these things take time. So it ends up being more expensive in the long run to do it back again and again. And of course, option 4, which is always an option, is to not approve the outreach project. That would not be great because then stakeholders would not be aware of what's happening. We'd lose valuable time to let people know before the deadline. And I would definitely not advocate for option 4. But these are some of the options I put on just to get things started. And that's it. Is there any technical questions?
Based on
We couldn't hear.
Can you hear me?
No.
Misha and Nicole, do you have any questions?
No, at this point, I appreciate all the research and things that Kevin has done to give this information to us. I'm personally of the viewpoint that I think we should do this, like get this right and do it once. So I'm definitely not expecting to approve sort of a minimum option, right? Option 3. And I would say my my preference lies for something in between options 1 and 2. I do think it'd be preferable to give as many staff hours as possible, devote as many staff hours as possible to this project, to again, like make sure that we deliver the highest quality outreach that we can. But at the same time, as far as the cost on the mailers, like I don't think a 5-round large mailer sort of option is really necessary. I think 3 rounds is good enough. So that's why I'm sort of in the middle there. But otherwise, I think we should go ahead and spend what we need, even though it might be expensive in the short term, once and for all, and sort of figure out what the community really wants.
I agree with you, everything you said, actually, because even if it took $27,000, it would be worth it to know what the neighborhood really wants to happen to this district. And we didn't get that the last time around by the 40 responses only that they got for their survey by the Parks and Rec Department, of which 8 came from one house. So I agree with you. I'd rather, I tend towards option 1 because, as Kevin says, if it becomes apparent that we don't need to spend that much, we need only 3, let's say, instead of 5 and 3 small ones, then we won't spend that much. But I don't want to hamper doing it right, because this is the only shot we have to try and reach out and find out what does the public want. And that's who we all serve on the board, is the public. And if it turns, we just have to wait and see what they want, and that's where we may refine our message a little bit more. But honestly, that outreach approach, I agree with you, not cool. I don't want to go for the minimum, and the difference between the midpoint and the maximum is, granted about $7,000, but we won't spend that if we don't need it. And I think it'll become apparent. Kevin can answer this question. Now I put in a question. I think it'll become apparent long before the end, more like the middle, where it's going to be heading. And we'll know whether we're going to end up spending the whole amount. Right, Kevin?
Yes, that's absolutely true. This timeline, if you notice the question marks here, it could wrap up earlier than that. It just, and it'll be noticeable much sooner than that.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of leaning more towards option 1 as well. I was originally of the mindset that we should try to aim for option 2, partially because two of our directors aren't here, and maybe their voices should be heard, and by allocating the midpoint, then maybe if we needed more, then they could kind of contribute their thoughts a little bit more. But I think I was also under the impression that if we only needed to send out 3 mailers, for example, then it would be better to approve the midpoint and then approve the maximum if necessary, if we needed more than 3. But I think the fact that we could still approve it but not spend all of that money just makes the most amount of sense. Also, Kevin wouldn't have to put in more work of drafting up a new report if we go for the midpoint. I think, aside from the $7,000 extra dollars, that's another big reasoning for me. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning more towards the maximum. As for questions, I've been able to ask Kevin all of my questions, and we've been able to kind of discuss this. So it looks good to me. Everything looks pretty solid.
I agree. It does look pretty solid. At this point, Kevin, I'm about ready to make a motion for option 1.
Oh, Steve, can we have input from the public?
You next.
Pardon?
It's the right time, right, Kevin?
Okay, so what?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You want me to talk now?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Yes, as Steve, or I don't know if it was Kevin or Steve said, this is a very, very complicated, involved process. Now, since I don't work, or I don't know what I am, homemaker, retired, I follow the city council. I go, if I can, I'm on Zoom meetings, etc. And I follow the LAFCO part of this. I was part of the group that actually went through the annexation from 1996 to 2000. So we have a lot of hours invested in this. When I was a little girl, we used to go to my great aunts down on Barnhart, and the center of Rancho Rinconada and Lori was actually the pool complex. Um, and then when I bought in here, et cetera, in 95, everything happened at the pool. So it's kind of like we're used to that. Now, fast forward 20 years, I think the special district is extremely unique. I think, like Steve and maybe some of the other people, I think it's very, very beneficial for the people that live in Rancho Rinconada. And I'd say go the whole 9 yards to try to get outreach to the public. If this, I don't think Park and Rec has the ability to to reach the people in Rancho because they're at the other end of town, and the city council is busy, and I don't know how much they have invested in here. So we're going to have to try to, I don't want to say defend ourselves, but we want people, this is a unique situation, and it can't just be brushed over without people understanding what's going on. And I think that we have many, many years. There are 3 generations invested in Rancho Rinconada in some families. Jordan's he's the 3rd generation in here. And we owe it to the neighborhood and to the area to try to keep the pool complex as long as we can intact. And then if something happens and we do have to go into the city, we have to make conditions, because that $1 million of assets, I will be very vocal about that, and the city knows it, as does Park and Rec Department, that $1 million should not dissolve into the general fund, because I have, in the last 20 years of going to city council meetings, I have seen stuff dissolve and disappear into that general fund. So we have assets, they need to be protected, but I'd say go the full mileage now to try to get the word out so that people understand what's going on, because this is a very, very complicated process, and it can't just be looked at in one pass. There's a lot of 75 years commitment here from the neighborhood. And I'm glad that you all are kind of on board with this. And if you guys, I have no problem with you spending as much money as you want to. I've got 25 years of my property, whatever, going here. So anyway, thank you so much. The plan looks really good, Kevin. Thank you very much. So yeah, gung ho, all steam ahead, and then we'll see where we're going. But I'll try to follow it as much as I can from LAFCO and City Council. They know. They watch us too. Anyway, thank you so much. Good luck. We'll keep going. Oh, I just wanted to ask a question. My girlfriend may start wanting to swim at the pool. Where should she just go to the website to try to get? She actually used to live in Rancho until she got divorced and moved to Santa Clara. Should she go in to sign up on the website?
Yes, that's correct. The website has a link where you can pre-register for a lane. It's pretty competitive though, so you have to register 7 days ahead.
Okay,
right
well,
on
she's
time.
a former college level. She almost went to the Olympics in '75, so with swimming. So she probably would be a good asset for your pool. Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Kevin, you got anything else to say?
No, thank you everyone for your kind words. I guess I'm just ready to go on whatever the board.
I think that Jenny has spoken for. Well, she's one member of our district who definitely sees the value of it, and I know I believe my other board members who are here tonight see the value of it, or they wouldn't have gone chosen to run for the board. So I think the bottom line is I think we're in agreement among ourselves, and I believe that the other two board members who couldn't make it tonight also agree. We might as well approve. I'd move to approve option 1 in case we need that much, and because we've got one shot to get the word out to everybody to let them know this is what could happen, and is that what the public wants? You know, does it want us to be taken over by Parks and Rec or not? Because the existence of our district, as a former city council member living in our district pointed out once, is a very special thing, and so it helps bring us together as a neighborhood, and over time, and that kind of focus to bring us together as a neighborhood is something that all good city councils would support, because face it, we live in times that are changing all the time, and we're always moving. A lot of people are moving all the time, so it's a focus, and I like it. But I'm beating that to death, so I'll move to approve option 1.
Second.
Whoops, Steve, you went away.
What?
Oh, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I move to approve option 1, and Nicole seconded it. Any more discussion? No? Okay. Then I'll call the question. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. Let's see. Director Racy,
Aye.
Director Waslowski, Director Bajaj.
Aye.
Approved unanimously. We'll be hearing a lot more about this. I'm curious to see some of the ideas, and I'm sure that we'll be kept informed before something goes out. You know, again. So on to item number 8, and annual board review policy. Annual board policy review. Items A, B, and C. Claims against the district, legal counsel and auditor, board policy 1020, overview of the general manager's role. I found one error in the legal, in the claims that against the district, and I about 2 hours ago, and I pointed out to Kevin 2 errors that in, can we scroll down to that page? Kevin? Yeah, page 2, that one, almost there. There. Oh, too far. Page 40. There we go. Response to claim. The district has accrual. The use of the word accrual there, and accrual in the second paragraph of item 7, time limitations. That's accrual. It has to do with financial options, and so for some reason the word occurrence became accrual, and that's the standard wording. I verified that with my significant other who's handled claims for 30 years. And she says, yeah, that's the standard language, is occurrence. So I said, let's change that to occurrence. Somehow it made it through the, it's good that we review all of our policies once a year, because all of a sudden I caught that, you know, and we missed it the first time through. All of us missed it. So, but other than that, I didn't see any other changes. How about the rest of you?
Looks good to me.
Do we need to approve that change, Kevin, legally?
No, so what we'll do is I will make that change, and then at the next meeting, it would be the second reading with, of course, that change. And then, of course, we'll make that change. And then there'll be a new batch of policy to review, just for things just like this.
All right, sounds good. So, all right, well, that concludes the agenda I have, unless anybody has any items that we can talk about, given the, if they aren't on the agenda. I guess not. So, somebody want to move to adjourn?
Sure.
Move to adjourn.
Steve. Bye-bye, Steve.
Do we have a second? Steve, I think we can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Can you hear me? No. You need a second.
It's okay.
Can you do that? Second.
All right, I heard a second there, and I. Okay. All right.
I think, yeah, this Zoom. I gotta find a better connection through Zoom. You know, because we're a little choppy tonight before we formally adjourn. And I guess if I speak at this level, can all of you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
You just have to shout for me. Kevin, you were mostly involved, but you had some cutouts. And I wondered if you were too.
You went away again, Steve.
I'm putting out again.
You went away.
I didn't hear you.
You faded out again, Steve.
Oh, I faded out again. Am I clear again now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I need the feedback. I hate to waste everybody's time, but I need the feedback to kind of. All right, so long as I shout, you can hear me.
Yes.
The good news is I can't shout for very long. So as you've noticed in the we had together, that's a good thing. The less I talk, the better off we all are, and the faster meetings go. So I think we're adjourned at 7:18 officially.
Is the next meeting March 2nd?